There is a certain type of person who becomes difficult to provoke. They hear an insult and do not immediately defend themselves. They face criticism and do not rush to explain. They enter an argument and, instead of searching for the perfect response, they choose silence. Most people misunderstand this. They assume silence means weakness. They assume the person has nothing to say. They assume the person lost. But sometimes silence is not the absence of power. Sometimes silence is the result of having enough control to recognize when speaking gives something away. Because every argument contains an invisible question. Who is controlling the emotional state of this interaction? The person who can force you to react has influence over you. The person who can make you abandon your judgment, lose your patience, and defend your identity on command has found a psychological weakness. This is why emotionally intelligent people are careful with conflict. Not because they are afraid of confrontation, because they understand something most people ignore. Not every battle deserves access to your mind. An argument is not always a search for truth. Sometimes it is a competition for dominance. Sometimes it is an attempt to trigger an emotional reaction. Sometimes it is simply a situation where two people are protecting their identities instead of examining reality. And the person who understands this learns a different skill. Not how to win every argument. How to recognize when participation itself is the mistake. Every person carries an internal image of who they are. You have a story about yourself. You are intelligent. You are reasonable. You are a good person. You are someone who sees things clearly. This self-image gives you stability, but it also creates vulnerability. Because when someone challenges that image, your brain often interprets it as more than disagreement. It interprets it as a threat. This is where the ego becomes involved. The ego is not simply arrogance. In psychology, the concept refers to the part of the mind involved with identity, self-perception, and maintaining a sense of self. When someone attacks your opinion, your behavior, or your character, the emotional reaction often comes from a deeper place. The mind is not only thinking, "They disagree with me." It is thinking, "They are challenging who I believe I am." This is why arguments become so intense. Two people begin with a disagreement about an idea. But somewhere during the conversation, the disagreement transforms into a defense of identity. Now the goal is no longer understanding. The goal is protection. The person who chooses silence understands this process. They recognize when a conversation has stopped being about information and has become a battle between two self-images. And once that happens, more words rarely create more understanding. They usually create more resistance. Because when someone feels psychologically threatened, facts often become less important than preserving their own identity. Most people believe control means someone forcing you to do something. But one of the most effective forms of control is much quieter. It is controlling your emotional state. If someone knows exactly how to make you angry, defensive, insecure, or desperate to prove yourself, they have discovered a mechanism they can activate. A single comment can change your behavior. A single accusation can make you explain yourself for hours. A single insult can pull you into a conflict you never intended to enter. This is why emotional reactivity is dangerous. A reactive person does not choose their response. They experience a trigger, and the trigger chooses for them. The person who insults you does not need to physically control you. They only need to control the button they press. This is why silence can become a form of psychological independence. Not responding immediately creates distance between stimulus and reaction. That distance matters, because inside that space is where choice exists. Someone says something provocative. The reactive person thinks, "I need to prove them wrong." The controlled person thinks, "Why do they want this reaction from me?" That is a completely different psychological position. One person is inside the emotion. The other person is observing it, and the observer has more control. One of the biggest mistakes people make is assuming every disagreement is a search for truth. It is not. Some conversations are. Others are about validation, status, and winning. A person may argue because they want to understand. Another person may argue because they cannot tolerate being wrong. The words may sound identical. The psychological intention is completely different. This is why intelligent people often look beyond the argument itself. They ask, what is actually happening here? Is this person interested in exchanging ideas? Or are they trying to force agreement? Are they asking questions? Or are they waiting for their opportunity to attack? Are they interested in reality? Or are they protecting their ego? A conversation where both people are willing to change their minds can create understanding. A conversation where both people are trying to defend themselves becomes a performance. The loudest person is not always the strongest person. The person with the most words is not always the person with the most control. Sometimes the strongest position is recognizing that the conversation has no path toward truth and leaving it untouched. Silence creates something many people find uncomfortable: uncertainty. Most people are comfortable when they can predict another person's reaction. They know if they criticize someone, that person will defend themselves. They know if they provoke someone, that person will become emotional. They know which buttons create movement. But when someone refuses to react, the pattern breaks. The person trying to provoke them receives no reward. The emotional game stops working. This is why silence can feel powerful. It removes information. It prevents another person from controlling the direction of the interaction. However, silence is not automatically strength. Avoiding every difficult conversation is not emotional intelligence. Sometimes silence is fear. Sometimes silence is avoidance. The difference is intention. A fearful person stays silent because they believe they cannot handle conflict. A controlled person stays silent because they have decided conflict is not worth their attention. One comes from weakness. The other comes from judgment. The ability is not simply knowing when to speak. It is knowing when your words will create something valuable. Many arguments are secretly negotiations for approval. People defend their opinions because changing their mind feels like losing status. They explain themselves because they fear being misunderstood. They continue arguments because they cannot tolerate someone viewing them negatively. This reveals something important. The need to be seen a certain way can become a psychological weakness. If you need everyone to understand you, anyone can control your attention. If you need everyone to agree with you, anyone can create insecurity. If your confidence depends on changing another person's opinion, your confidence is not fully yours. The person who is comfortable with themselves does not need to win every interaction. They can allow someone else to misunderstand them. They can allow disagreement to exist. They can walk away without needing the final word. This does not mean they do not care. It means they understand the difference between being challenged and being threatened. A stable identity does not require constant defense. Every reaction has a cost. Your attention is limited. Your emotional energy is limited. Your time is limited. But many people spend these resources proving themselves to people who have already decided what they believe. They enter endless debates. They write long explanations. They attempt to convince people who are not actually listening. And slowly, the argument becomes more important than their own peace of mind. This is the hidden cost of constant engagement. You begin organizing your behavior around other people's opinions. Your focus moves outward. Your decisions become reactions. Your mind becomes occupied with defending yourself. The person who chooses silence understands that attention is a resource, and not every person deserves access to it. Sometimes refusing to participate is not surrender. It is recognizing that the situation has nothing valuable to offer. The strongest person in a conflict is not always the person who delivers the final argument. Sometimes it is the person who never needed one. Because psychological strength is not measured by how effectively you can overpower someone else. It is measured by how difficult you are to pull away from yourself. Anyone can be provoked. Anyone can be offended. Anyone can be manipulated into defending an image they are afraid to lose. But the person who understands their own mind becomes harder to control. They know when their ego is speaking. They know when their emotions are trying to take over. They know when a conversation is creating understanding and when it is simply creating damage. Silence is not always wisdom. Arguments are not always weakness. The difference is awareness. The person who chooses silence is not necessarily the person with nothing to say. Sometimes they are the person who understands that their words are valuable, and they refuse to spend them where they create nothing.